And we should be live to YouTube.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, April 21st, 2021 Urban Renewal Commission meeting. It is now just 4 minutes after 6. And would you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Sean Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle-Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Doug Neely.
Here.
And Chair Denise McGriff.
Here. And just for the record, Commissioner Neely will be leaving the meeting early, so do not be alarmed, but thank you for that, and thank you for the part that you can attend. So we have an Urban Renewal Commission meeting tonight, and we have 2 discussion items on the agenda and 1 communication item. And I'd like to start out with seeing if there are any citizen comments. Is anyone logged in to speak to us this evening?
We only have Steve Pearson, and he's with one of the items on the agenda.
Okay, so hearing that we do not have any citizen comments, I'd like to move to discussion item number 1, commercial lease renewal with Clackamas Landscape Supply, Inc. And I presume I'm turning that over to Mr. Graham.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Urban Renewal Commission, Mr. City Manager, ladies and gentlemen. Clackamas Landscape Supply, as you know, at the last meeting, was seeking to renew its lease with the Urban Renewal Commission starting retroactively January 1st, 2021, and expiring on December the 31st, 2023. Now, in this previous draft lease, the landlord being Urban Renewal, could terminate the lease at any time during the term of the lease, including any renewal term, by providing the tenant with no less than a 12-month prior written notice of termination. Now, the Urban Renewal Commission is in its sole discretion, may allow the tenant to exercise the option to renew the lease for 2 consecutive terms of 1 year each. Now, during our meeting last time, March 17th, the Urban Renewal, via majority vote, decided not to renew the proposed lease, but instead enter into a new month-to-month lease with the tenant. In addition, the commission agreed unanimously to revisit the matter at this particular meeting. Meanwhile, we received a letter from Mr. Pearson actually laying out some concerns, primarily with the time frame, and offering 2 options in his letter. One was a 2 to 3 year term, keeping the 12-month early termination option. And the second, an 18-month term with a 12-month early termination option that could be revisited around the 12-month period, January, to allow for flexibility if a timeline was established for a new use of the property. And I see that Mr. Pearson is here, and if he would like to say anything, I'll yield to his words. And if you would, you're muted.
Yeah, hold on just a minute, Mr. Pearson. Do the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Graham?
I would like him to repeat the 2 options one more time.
Okay.
Option 1, a 2 to 3 year term, keeping the 12-month termination option. And the second one, an 18-month term with a 12-month early termination option that could be revisited around December or January to allow for flexibility if a timeline was established for a new use for the property. Those were the 2 options.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. Graham before I call on Mr. Pearson? Just go right ahead if you do.
I think it's important to realize that these are the options presented by Mr. Pearson. We can provide our own counter proposals that would take into effect some of the things he said in his letter, such as seasonality and time to respond to if we choose to build. So I'll defer to Mr. Pearson at this point, but remember, those are not the only 2 options on the table.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Anybody else? Okay, Mr. Pearson, welcome, and please go right ahead and just introduce yourself for the record, even though I've said your name several times, just
Okay,
have that on tape.
all right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Steve Pearson. I'm the president and owner of Clackamas Landscape Supply. I live in Gladstone across the Clackamas River, but I probably spend as much or more time on the Oregon City side of the river. I opened up the business May 1st of 1998, 2 years after the big flood in 96. So we kind of came in 3 months before that, cleaned up the silt and debris and cleaned up the property, and then we secured it with fencing and gates. And then we brought in a mobile office that still has the axles under it today in case we needed to get it out of there quickly. So we've been there for 23 years, and we've always been viewed as a temporary use. It's been a great location for our business, and I hope that we have been an asset to the community because that's always been a high priority of mine. It is a seasonal business, and that is one of the biggest challenges, to be open and operating during our busy months. And it would be difficult to be working on moving at that same time. If I had enough notice, I could deplete my inventory during the busy season, and then during our 4 slower months would be the best time to move all of our assets off of the property and vacate the property when we're asked to do that. And I would love to have 12 months notice if I could, but I would be grateful for, and I understand it's your guys' decision, it's not mine. I'll be grateful for whatever I get, and I would love to be able to stay there as a temporary use until the city has something that they want to move forward on. We do the seasonality of it. I have about 10 employees that are my core group. We fluctuate from 10 during the slow months, and then we build up to about 18 employees during the spring and summer months. A lot of college students work for us, as well as senior retirees. So we find people that it's a good fit for both sides of the party, knowing that it's not a full-time year-round position. My core group has been very loyal to me, and I'm lucky to have them. 5 of us have been working together for 25 plus years. And we worked together at a gravel pit prior to opening this business here in Oregon City. So, and then I've got another 4 that have been with me 15 plus years. And so that's my core year-round group. And, my number one concern is for them and giving them a fair notice. I also want to have a workable time to where I can perform to your expectations of me. And like I said, I've really enjoyed my time in Oregon City. It's been a great location for me, my family, my employees. We've tried to help the communities. We've donated a lot to the different organizations, the End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. We've helped with the drug and alcohol-free graduation programs on both sides, Gladstone and Oregon City. So, I've tried to always give back to the community because I really do appreciate what they have provided for me and my family. Both of my daughters worked with our company during high school and as they were going to college. And then they even came back, and my wife included, came back and helped me during this last difficult year during the COVID, where we did shut down for about 5 weeks, hoping that it was going to be a short deal, and it turned out. And then we had to just figure out, okay, how are we going to do this in a 12 by 60 mobile office? So we kind of had to get in there, figure out how to make it work. We've got a couple speaker systems set up on the exterior of the buildings. We wear Bluetooth headsets on the inside, but my daughters came back and my family supported me. And because we couldn't have a bunch of people in that office, we had to figure out how to do it a different way. So the last year has been very difficult. In addition to that, we were shut down a week for air quality because of the fire. And then we lost 1 to 2 weeks with the ice storm and the power outage. But like I said, I'm very appreciative of your guys' time. I'm very grateful for the 23 years we've had there. We've always been viewed as a temporary use, and I've always been flexible. When the Amtrak station happened, we were on that. That was part of our original lease. And when that came up, we got together with them. We found out the timeline during our slow season. We moved the boundaries where they wanted us to move them. We moved fences, and we ended up having to reorganize because it displaced product. But we reorganized our business from one end to the other. And in the end, it turned out to be even cleaner and more organized and more well-run. So if anything like that comes up again, the last thing I want to do is hold anything up. If something came up and they needed to move quickly, I would do everything I could to make that happen. I just want to assure you of that. I'm open to any questions anybody might have. James just asked me in the letter to kind of include in the letter a couple options. And so that's why I put that in there. I didn't expect that as this is either this option or this option. I understand it's whatever the commission decides.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Pearson? Mr. Neely?
It's not really a question. I was on the Urban Renewal Commission back at that time. And as I recall, before you went to the landfill site, when the Urban Renewal Commission bought that site, were you located on county property somewhere? Did you have to move?
Yeah, you mean in the gravel pit that we had before
Yes.
that? Yeah, it was over in the Clackamas Industrial Park on 130th. Oh, it's been a while. 130th and Cass. Clackamas County bought that. They were going to use it as a motor pool. I think it was going to be a shared facility they were going to move off of Abernathy Creek where they had just experienced a flood. In fact, they brought all of their equipment on. They owned the property and we were renting back. So they owned the property when it flooded. So that when they emptied out the facility there on Abernathy, they moved all of their equipment there to get it out of the flood. And so yeah, they bought it. They were going to use it for a shared facility, I believe, with maybe the school district, the county, and maybe ODOT. I'm not sure. But then I think there was problems with funding the project, and they ended up selling it, and now it's been developed into industrial warehouses.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Just a few questions for Mr. Pearson. Actually, I was told today that your previous place of business is either the site or close to the site that the county is now considering for their new transfer station. Do you have any knowledge of that? Is that accurate? Or
Metro. It's Metro.
Metro, excuse me, that Metro intends to use for transfer.
I've been by there recently and it looks like there's warehouse buildings covering most of the property. So I'm not aware of that at all. We haven't been involved in that property for quite a while.
Well, let me ask a few questions of you because I do want to work with you within your time frame. I presume that from January through now, we've been just paying faithfully, and then we're current. You paid January, February, March, and April on it. So my question to you is, what 4 months are the most opportune for you if you found yourself having to make a move?
Yes, James and I discussed every year there's, I believe, a 2.5% increase. So we figured that out and we started paying the new rate. So we have been paying that. Our slow months are the winter months when the days get shorter and the weather isn't as nice. So it's usually November through February. And during those months, usually the other thing that we do, we import a lot of stone from higher elevations out of Utah, Idaho, and Montana. So in order to have product available for the next spring, I have to pre-purchase and get as much as I can in for inventory and carry it through the winter, because they get snow up in those elevations where they quarry that rock, they can't produce. So if I had advance notice, I wouldn't stock up on that product, and I would have a plan in place to deplete my inventory and get to the slow months, and then move the assets out during those 4 months.
So my question is going to involve the city officials and planners too. We're current on our rent payment. Is there anything that would prohibit us from going from May to May and then allowing a not less than 6 months nor more than 12-month extension? If you do the months on that, May to May keeps them in business and gets them there. If he has to extend, allowing a 6 month extension, you get June, July, August, September, October, he gets into November, which time would be opportune if he found himself in a position to move. So I don't want to essentially disrupt the gentleman's business. I also don't want to lock the thing down indefinitely. I feel that we as a city and as an urban renewal commission and as a city commission need to start putting forth some plans. So in trying to work with Mr. Pearson, I don't want to get locked into this, the lease is retroactive to January 1. Why do we care? I mean, it's just a time period that we can specify. So maybe we can come to a mutually agreeable time period between Mr. Pearson that allows him to conduct his business, arrange for potential movement, and move during his slowest season. That's my statement.
Neely?
Now, if I understand you correctly, what this would allow him to do is have 2 full seasons of sale with the agreement we have, plus a 1-year notification period. Am I right?
Now, what it would do is take him from this May to next May, and he's guaranteed a minimum of a 6 month renewal from next May, which would be June, July, August, September, October, and into November.
So that's 2 seasons that he'd be operating there.
Yes,
Effective.
yes. And then that places him in his slow season, at which time he could effectively make his move.
Yeah.
It was just a thought. I wanted to put it out for consideration.
Discussion? Mayor Lyle Smith?
Thank you, Commissioner McGriff. The only issue with that timeline is that we need the lease. I think we need the lease to go through the winter months so that he has winter months. He can be on that property, moving his equipment out during the winter months. Is that true, Mr. Pearson? Like the lease couldn't end in September, because that would mean he would have to be already moving all of his equipment out by the end of September, which is his peak season. So the lease would need to go through the winter months.
I think you can go ahead and answer Mr. Pearson's question.
Mr. Did you hear Pearson?
You can go ahead and answer. Can you hear?
Well, it was cutting out. I couldn't hear. Yeah.
I think he's frozen.
Couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I think his internet is questionable. So
Mr. Pearson, if you can hear us, go ahead and turn off your video, but leave your audio on and see if that helps. Nope.
Please got help.
There we go.
You're on mute now, Steve. Steve, you're on mute. Steve, you're on mute.
Mr. Pearson, you're on mute.
Yep.
So I've asked him to
There he is.
unmute.
There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Great.
Okay, so I'll repeat my question. My question is, I believe you need time. We need the lease term to include winter months so that you could move off of the property during those winter months, right? Like you wouldn't prefer a lease that ended in September. You would prefer a lease that went through February to terminate in February, for example, so that you would have November through February to move off. Is that correct?
Yes, to get all of the building, the mobile office, all of the blocks, the equipment, and anything else that we have on the property, the 4 slower months, November through February, would be optimal.
Okay. So then my question is for the Urban Renewal Commission. I know we talked on Monday about moving forward with properties that we own and working on a vision and all of that. I think that will take a few months, to sift through the properties. And obviously this is one of the properties. So I guess I was thinking, given that work that we're anticipating doing over the next few months, I didn't know, I would propose maybe a year lease that would take us through the end of December. And then at that time, we reevaluate whatever the extension time length should be, with a minimum of 12 months to get him through, that could be the final year, or we could say it's 14 months, to get him through February. You know what I mean? If we've decided by December of the end of this year, for example, that, okay, we're ready to move on this piece of property, we want to put out an RFP, maybe at that point we would decide it's time to terminate the lease with Mr. Pearson. If we're not ready to make a decision by the end of this year, then we would just give him another, repeat the process, give him another year, and we would reevaluate maybe the next December. That would be kind of a potential possibility.
So, anybody else has questions before I call on you again? Mr. Cross or Mr. Smith? Nothing at this time? Hang on. Are you thinking, Sean? No questions? Okay, I can read lips. Okay, back to you, Doug.
Yeah, this is really coming to a question to Rachel. I guess my concern is this: at what point are we going to do the 1-year notification? Because we could have a year's worth of notification.
Yes, I'm hearing that.
And to take
Yes.
it, to guarantee that he's getting to the end of the next season, we've got the capability of extending it, not getting the notification until he's got the opportunity to continue on to another season if we don't have anything coming up.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, that's what you heard correctly.
Okay.
The illustrious Mr. O'Donnell. Yes, sir.
So I've lost a number of my tabs, and I'm going to have to go back and re-sign back in. But I think we're essentially trying to arrive at the same conclusion, which is an initial period and then an extended period that helps the gentleman relocate, getting him through his winter season to relocate, and then freeing us up in the spring as the season in which building commences. We ought to be able to put together some compatible plan. I think we also, at the end of the first year, ought to reevaluate the 2.6% to see what the economy's doing. I know that's the current rate of inflation right now, but that may very well change as the economy opens up.
It's actually higher than the rate of inflation right now.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I just Googled it today and it gave me the number 2.6%. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know where your information comes from.
Yeah.
I would like to suggest some caution in the fact that we have a tenant. We're going through a period right now, and right now we've got a lot of brush and debris removal. Maybe people aren't getting as much landscaping material. I think we need to be cognizant of how everybody is doing through this COVID period and be reasonable, but make sure we are being responsible to the taxpayers at the same time. So Doug, you had your hand up again, because I know you have to leave, so I want to make sure. if
I
you're-
think she's doubtlessly going to form a motion. I think her recommendation is fine. We've got to recognize it's not only a case of him being able to move, it's also a case of him being able to find a location. So you got both those things that have to be considered. That's that area that you used to be with when you were on county property, of course. As you say, warehouses have come in. The whole dynamics may change quite a bit. It may take him a while to find a location. I think Rachel's, as I understood the recommendation, would enable him to both find a location and make the move. And I think that's critical.
Okay, I'm going to recognize City Manager Conkle. He's got.
I guess,
His
can
hand
I
up.
maybe try and summarize what I think I'm hearing?
Yeah, I was getting ready to go there, but you can go ahead.
So essentially, we're agreeing to Mr. Pearson being on the property through December 31st, 2022. On around December of 2021, so later this year, we'll make a decision whether to extend to 2023 or say, I'm sorry, we're done. Here's your 1-year notice to terminate in 2022. Is that what you're saying?
I've got shaking heads yes and shaking heads no.
That wasn't what I proposed. I proposed 1 year less. So I was proposing, because we said on Monday, we were going to start moving on these properties and talking about what we wanted to do with them. I thought that by the end of this year, so by contract through 2021, we would renegotiate in December of 2021, whether or not we were going to terminate the agreement, which would give him an extension of 12 or 14 months in order to move out, plan his move and transition. Or if we're not going to terminate the agreement, then we would just provide another extension, another year, and we would do the same process again the following December. Are we ready to terminate? We'd give him another year. So it was kind of a rolling year. And at December, decide to terminate or to extend to give him time to move off the property.
I guess if I could just follow up real quick, I think that's what we're doing though. But essentially we're saying you can be on the property at a minimum until December of 2022. Let's just, because we're gonna work through this year. In December of 2021, the end of this year, we're gonna say, we'll give you 12 more months, or we're going to extend you for another year. Somehow we've got to get ahead of the 1 year at some point, which means
Right.
you need 2 years to do that.
Right.
So I think I'm saying the same thing, but just under the realize, I guess the question is there a point where he would be off of the property prior to December of 2022? And I don't think that is based on what you're proposing.
I would agree. Mr. Cross.
This question's really for Mr. Conkle, and it really is, what is the time you think it would take for us to finish up the plan, go through the list of projects we have, get an RFP out, go through the RFPs, go through land use, and then be ready to actually sell the property at the end of all this to any developer that came up with a plan for the property? I mean,
think it's
24 plus months easy.
easily.
Yeah, so I don't see why we couldn't do a 24-month lease just with a 12-month notice. And if it goes longer, it goes longer. I think it's a good use to have something on the property. But I'm not set on this 1 year, because just to get it something through that is going to take us at least 2 years to get anything before a developer would buy the property anyways.
And I don't know that you couldn't negotiate while there's still, I mean, usually the purchase is taken down upon the land use approval of the entitlements or whatever trigger we decide. I mean, historically, the urban renewal has not been willing to sell a property until, for example, the building permits are pulled and paid for, or, so that, you start tacking on, and not that I'm, not, I can speak better to, land use. There's a pre-app that's good for 6 months. Then a land use application is submitted. You go through the land use process, you go through the engineering process. It takes time, and that doesn't include finishing up the urban renewal plan, creating an RFP, reviewing RFP, selecting a potential partner to work on whatever the RFP or RFQ is requesting on the property, negotiating a contract, approving that contract. So I completely appreciate the desire to go quickly. There are just regulatory and process that have to go through that it takes time.
I think I'll jump in. I agree with you. I was being a little circumscript. I said my mind was a minimum 18 months to get through the process. And we have properties. Yes, I agree with what Mayor Lyle Smith said, that we are going to start looking at our properties, but we have properties that don't have tenants on them, that I would probably put this one last, or at least not last in the process. But if I'm thinking about the process of which ones I want to redevelop, I would probably put this one near the end, because we have a tenant, and look at the ones where we have, they're basically shovel ready. We could sell them, get the RFP, do whatever. So I think what you're proposing, Sean, is more where I'm coming from. And, I like the 18-month process with a 12 months contingency. So in case we have to move, but give them some guarantee. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Did you have one more thing, Doug?
Yeah. Well, the point I was going to make is, and Tony made the comments early on. This is all within the floodplain. If we were going to have a site that we wanted to develop, we would want to pull that out of the floodplain. I mean, anything that would go in without that kind of activity would be basically the same kind of industry, really, that we currently have there. It'd be something that you could do in the floodplain. So there wouldn't be major construction there. It's got to be a cut and fill. I think what Tony's recommending is very good. It doesn't preclude us in that final year of starting to pull things together, because a lot of plans would have to be put together by the proposed individual that's coming in. We could even make agreements in ahead of time as to them coming in, but it probably wouldn't be developable for 2 years anyway.
Well, before
any sense.
Before I go to Mayor Lyle Smith, my colleague Rocky Smith has been uncharacteristically silent. So do you want to jump in or hold off? Because I think somebody's ready to formulate a motion.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with the comments that have been said already. I would lean towards the 18-month, 12-month, so the second option that was proposed by the tenant. But I also am open to other motions as well.
All right, back to the corner of the Hollywood Squares, Mayor Lyle Smith. You're in my upper left, so.
Right. So for the record, I just read the minute of our last meeting, and I was proposing something because last time you all were wanting a 1-year contract with a 6-month extension. And I was like, no, that's way too short. And I think me and Mr. Neely, Commissioner Neely, and maybe Sean Cross were the only ones saying no. So I thought I was throwing out a proposal that was a little bit a compromise in between there. And I feel like all of you completely flip-flopped because we've heard from the landowner. So I am totally supportive of a longer agreement. I was just trying to come to a compromise based on everything that I heard last time where we couldn't come to an agreement. So somebody else please make a motion that you all feel comfortable with based on the new information that we received from the supply from the lessee, because I'm not sure where you're all at. I feel like this whole conversation is flip-flopped. So here you go.
I guess what's interesting is that whether you do Mayor Lyle Smith's 1 year, revisit with a minimum 1 year, you're at December of 2023. Or if you go 18 months with 6 months, you're at December of 2023. So
Right.
you're ending at the exact same point.
I know. I was asking Mr. Cross or Mr. Smith if they wanted to make a motion. We're now repeating ourselves, so I'm going to ask for a motion, please. Come on, Sean, unmute yourself and make a motion.
Okay, I move to do an 18-month lease or to December, basically what Mr. Conkle had suggested. That lease for up to December 2022, we'll revisit it each year and do an extension if need be.
Is there a second?
For clarification, if I may. The first extension could happen in December.
Of
I mean, if
21, right?
that, yes, I think that's what the discussion was, right? Is that we would approve it through December of 2022, but we would revisit it in December of 2021, and there you'd make a
Right.
decision.
Yeah.
Either we're done and you've got your 1 year notice.
Yeah.
Or in December of, then we would have to revisit it again and say, okay, we're going to be ending this, trying to give that 1 year notice. Is that?
Sean, was that what you intended?
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, seconded by, moved by Mr. Cross, seconded by Mr. Neely. Is there any further discussion? All right, please call for the roll.
Commissioner Sean Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
I believe I'll abstain.
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Aye.
and Chair Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'm going to have to leave the meeting. I'm going to have to leave the meeting. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
thank you. Thank you so much for attending. The record will note that Commissioner Neely is signing off right now. Mr. Pearson, you good?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much for attending, and we appreciate your comments and your submittal.
All right, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's move on to item number 2 under discussion. We have the minutes of March 17th, 2021 of our commission. Do we have any comments, questions, additions, amendments, or do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Smith. Okay, all right, call for the question.
Commissioner Sean Cross,
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Neely, who is absent, and Chair Denise McGriff.
Aye. All right.
Motion passes.
Yay. Moving on to item number 3, we have the illustrious Finance Director, Mr. Matt Sook. Would you like to chat with us about this?
Good evening, commissioners. And I would like to, I'm pleased to be able to tell you that our Urban Renewal Commission audit came through again with a clean opinion from the audit firm Marina and Company. And I provided you with the financial report and a letter from the auditors to yourselves, the governing body. And the Urban Renewal report actually has a management discussion analysis early on, pages 4 through 6, which essentially give you a financial overview of the financial position of the city, of the Urban Renewal Agency. I will also say that at the last meeting, I presented you with even more current information. So in a nutshell, the agency is without debt, with a financial position of around $3 million. And that is a good position to move forward into your discussions for the new projects and the plan moving forward. So that is my staff report.
Mr. Conkle, did you want to add anything, or is that?
I think that's the extent of it at this point.
Are there any questions from our commissioners?
I'm back.
Hi.
The meeting in question is tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Well, you only missed the approval of the minutes, and now we are discussing the financial reports for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. And it looks like everybody totally understands it because Matt's just done a fantastic job and we have no questions. Is that so? I see everyone is glazed over. Okay. Rachel, your hand. All right. Mr. Conkle, are there any further communications we have for the commission?
I do not have any further updates tonight. Thank you.
And when do you anticipate we will be having our next meeting?
We will have at a minimum on May 5th. The next meeting will have the Coasters restaurant facility at the Amtrak station. Their lease will be coming up for discussion as well.
Will we also have time to maybe start having a discussion for maybe 20 to 25 minutes about vision? Because I'm furiously reading the urban renewal plan and I'm coming up with quiz questions for you all. So be ready. Will you be walking through?
We're meeting with Leland and we'll kind of reload based on our last meeting on Monday.
Unfortunately, Denise, part of that meeting, I'll be in parent-teacher conferences, so quiz away.
Oh, well, I can give you a makeup test.
Okay.
It's open book. It's open book, so it's totally easy. All right. If there's no further business for the commission tonight, I will recommend that we adjourn and we will reconvene under Mayor Lyle Smith at 7 o'clock.
Great. Thank you, everybody.